Well, hi everybody. So today I'll be going over big Radials Grumman Goose here. Now this is the JRF variant of it, so this one doesn't have retractable pontoons and all the cool stuff, but that's all right. It's still pretty fun. So we'll go ahead and get started here. Well, here we are in the Goose. It looks pretty good. Um, Not too much, if anything, to really complain about. There are a few spots where I guess it could have been a little bit smoother in terms of the model, but overall it looks pretty good. Some of it looks real nice and beat up, and then some of it looks brand new. But it's not something I'm really going to complain about. The only two things I've noticed is that there's a gap up here. I don't think it's really a big deal. You're probably never even going to notice it unless you're looking for it. The other thing is the fuel level here, depending upon kind of the angle that you look at it, seems to disappear. But that's pretty much the only two real problems I've noticed, and I don't think they're even really that much of a problem. The kind of odder thing, though, is if you do happen to fly this thing in the rain, the sort of water effects that go over all the windows and everything in here will also appear on your on the glass here for the flight for the fuel level. So that's kind of interesting. But overall it looks pretty good. So we'll go ahead and get started here. Well, as far as the features go for this thing, there aren't that many. Most of them are, let's say, cosmetic things. So you can open the windows. You can open the front hatch here. You can open the cabin door. Have a look in here. Welcome to Spirit Airlines. You can open the sort of rear cargo hold back here. This thing by default comes weighted with, I think it's like 150 pounds of cargo back here. If you get rid of all the cargo, the boxes disappear as well. They don't add any more boxes, so if you put like 1,000 pounds back there, it doesn't add a bunch more boxes, but oh well. You can open up the rear door, and you can actually put the ladder down. Now, depending upon where your camera is kind of situated in here, there is a click point for it. It seems to be either kind of in this general area, depending upon where you're looking at it. If you haven't moved the camera, you just turned around, it's like right here on this valve. And then if you have moved the camera, it's kind of over here by the bolts on the right side of the door. And then we have this neat little thing. And this will also let you turn the ladder on or turn the ladder off. You can put an anchor out for it when it's in the water. Now the anchor doesn't work. It won't really hold you still, so don't expect it to stop you from moving. And then we can hide or show the wheel hubs here. We can activate the water rudder, which is actually incredibly useful in this plane. It's not exactly the easiest thing to steer in the water. And then we have the fishing pole you can put on top of the plane if you want. This is the only place that you can hide or show the yokes, so clicking on them doesn't make them disappear. You're going to have to do it from in here. And then we can change the model of the yoke here so that it's leather instead of its sort of default metal. And we've got transponder and GPS thing in here. So that's pretty much it. So we'll go ahead and run through the instrument panel. Alrighty, so starting here on the left side of the instrument panel, we've got the altimeter, airspeed indicator, turn slip coordinator, climb indicator, directional compass, heading compass, whatever you want to call it. Moving over here to the center, we've got a clock. We've got a directional gyro, attitude indicator. Now this whole panel right here is pretty much your autopilot, or at least all the settings for your autopilot. I know technically it's not called an autopilot, but that's probably what I'm going to refer to it as. I'll kind of go over this a little bit more when I get it in the air here, but it doesn't work quite right. It works, it just I guess doesn't. I'll explain it when I get in the air. Then we've got the position lights, landing lights, pitot heat, interior lighting here, and fire extinguisher. Now I have yet to light the plane on fire, so I don't know if this works. It is clickable, but I don't know if it actually puts a fire out or if this thing actually does catch on fire. So moving up here, we've got manifold pressure, RPM gauge, throttle mixture lever, the starters here for the left and right engine, the magnetos, your flaps lever, fuel pressure, oil temperature. Then we've got oil pressure, carburetor heat, propeller pitch, cylinder head temperature, carburetor temperature, and then outside air temperature. Now this little knob up here is the panel lights for the overhead panel here, which actually did take me a little while to find. And then I guess we have the circuit breaker here. Now the circuit breaker seems to pretty much work. All of them do seem to work. The only ones I really did check out and test was the lighting, but I would assume that since the lighting works, the rest of them works. So we've got your fuel level here for the right tanks or right engine. Got a fuel selector, batteries, alternators, and then we've got the switch for the cross feed, and the fuel valves for the left and the right engine, and then the fuel pump here, the manual fuel pump. And then moving down here to sort of the left side of the seat, got some more exterior lights. We've got your rudder trim, your parking brake, tail wheel lock, and then over here on the right side of your seat, you've got pitch trim, and then we've got the landing gear crank here, and that's pretty much it for in here. So we'll go ahead and get it started. All right, so to start off, we want to make sure the propeller pitch is up here at decrease RPM, or is at the minimum that you can do this. So it needs to be all the way back. And we'll move down here, flip on the battery, alternators, go ahead and switch the, I guess that's the tank selector. There, we'll go ahead and turn cross feed off to start the thing off. And we'll turn the left and the right engine fuel valves on. We'll come over here to the manual fuel pump, and we'll pump this 4 times. What you're looking for, though, is 3 to 4 psi on the fuel pressure gauge up there. And yeah, we hit 3, so that's fine. Then we'll come up here and turn the magnetos for the left and the right engine onto both. We'll leave the mixture cut off, and we'll need to prime the engine, so we'll go ahead and pump the throttle here 4 times, maybe 5. 4 seems to work. And then we'll leave it cracked. I'm going to leave it probably a little bit more cracked than you actually should. It's just easier to click on the starter this way. So then we'll click on the starter. That does seem to take it a second to get going. And then come over here to the mixture and move your mixture up to auto rich. Go ahead and start the right one up. For whatever reason, the right one seems to start faster than the left one. And then move the right mixture up to auto rich. All right. So we've got it running, and pretty much good to go. So we'll go ahead and taxi out here and take it off. All right. Well, we made it out here to the end of the runway. It's not terribly difficult to taxi it or anything like that. It does seem to take a little bit of power to actually get it to roll in the beginning, but other than that, it's pretty easy thing to turn and do all of that. So we'll go ahead and take off here. We'll go ahead and lock the tail wheel. Then we'll release the parking brake. We're going to want to bring the manifold pressure up to about 35 and increase the RPM there to 2300. you should lift off at right about 70 knots. 75 is probably good. I had an obstacle, so that didn't look that great. We'll go ahead and at least park the brake and bring the manifold pressure back down to about 32 and reduce the propeller pitch to 22. Well, I guess I'm already at 2200, but we should reduce it to about 2200. Now there is damage on this thing, so you can damage the engines, but as long as you bring it back down, keep it somewhere around like 32 or 33 on manifold pressure and 2200, you should be okay. Just, you know, keep an eye on everything. As long as it's in the green, you'll probably be fine. When I first got the plane, I wasn't actually aware this thing had damage on it, so I had to return to the airfield after losing my left engine. It's not terribly difficult to keep in the air with one engine. It's pretty slow, but other than that, it's pretty easy to manage on one engine. Now, as far as how it flies, it's a pretty fun one to fly. It's got an incredibly slow roll rate, if it'll actually even do a complete roll, but that's not surprising. It is a flying boat, so I wasn't expecting anything particularly maneuverable out of it, but it is still quite fun to fly. Now, its stall speed is going to be somewhere around probably about the maybe the low 60s, hovering around 60 with the flaps up. With them down, it'll be a little bit lower than that. Now, I haven't really been able to get it to spin in a stall. It seems to kind of just correct itself, and it sometimes it dips the wing, sometimes it just drops the nose. So, but other than that, it's still pretty fun to fly. So, I've been enjoying it. We'll go ahead and run through the autopilot here. So we'll want to turn it on by flipping this switch. The little red light will come on here, and you'll probably have to adjust the elevator knob over here a little bit to increase it, because this thing is a little bit nose heavy, but other than that, it seems to function pretty well. Now, it doesn't function, I guess, the way it should really function, but the upper dial here is your current heading, and the lower one is the heading for the autopilot to hold. You can't adjust this, so it's always going to be at 0. So this is kind of just a heading hold for it. So get yourself on your heading, turn the autopilot on, and then as you need to adjust your course, just, you know, mess with the rudder and the ailerons here to adjust your course. But it does, for the most part, work. It just it was a little surprising that didn't actually function, considering the circuit breaker in this plane functions. But other than that, it works. So go ahead and turn this off and come in here for landing. I'm kind of far out here, so I'll probably just skip to the part where I landed. So I'll see y'all here in a second. Alrighty, so we'll go ahead and come in here for a landing. Go ahead and reduce the throttle here a little bit. Now, this thing does slow down quite quickly, and it is, once you get the gear and the flaps down, it does become kind of hard to actually keep it in the air. So it'll probably require a pretty good amount of power to keep it in the air. But once we get below 100 here, we'll go ahead and put the gear and the flaps down. Now, the flaps do take a pretty good amount of time to come down. It's not terrible, but they aren't exactly quick. We'll go ahead and increase the throttle here again. Probably somewhere above 20 on your manifold pressure, and you'll probably need to maintain something somewhere around, I'll say 2200 or so to keep it in the air. We really should be coming in here at about 80 knots. I'm going quite slow, and hopefully won't fall out of the sky here before I get to the runway. Alright, so we'll go ahead and back this down. We really should touch down at about 70 knots, but We're already below that, so we'll just go ahead and set it down here. Alrighty. Well, now I don't remember if I mentioned this before, but this thing has a slight problem with nose planting itself, so just don't lock the brakes up. It won't really nose plant itself, but it will kind of lift the tail off the ground. So, there we go. Like that. So, I haven't quite decided yet what's next, but either way, it's probably going to be the review. So, alright, well, if you want to pick up the Goose, you can get it from bigradials.com. It's a little over $27. You get this one, which has 6 paint schemes. Then you get a second version that has skis on it, because that's a thing. And a bush trip from Seattle to somewhere in British Columbia. I haven't flown it yet. But overall, I quite like it. I did have a little bit of a difficult time getting a nice water landing. But I think that's me and not the plane. And if you stick around till the end, you can see an example of my attempts at it. As far as the texture and model quality go, it's good. The exterior of the plane actually does look really good. There is one thing I did find, that the strut, I think you'd call it a strut, that connects the horizontal stabilizer to the fuselage isn't connected to anything. But it was a while before I noticed that, and it's really only noticeable from a certain angle. But that really is about the only thing I noticed with the exterior. The interior has a few problems, nothing major. I think there are a few places where they could have smoothed it out a little bit, but overall it's pretty good. Well, the sounds and the sound quality are pretty good. I like them. I do find myself sometimes just sitting there listening to the engine. Most of the other things sound good as well. It does make kind of an interesting noise when you're about to stall. The hinges squeak and stuff like that, so there's a fair amount of detail in the sound effects. That said, there are some things I don't hear very well, but it's definitely not a deal breaker. I do think the best sound is the engine, especially if you just leave it at a low RPM. It does sound really good. As far as the flight model goes, it's okay. I will say I think the stall characteristic is a little strange. It really doesn't spin. It's easy to get out of, which seems to be kind of par for the course for Microsoft Flight Simulator. Pretty much one of two things is going to happen. It's either going to drop the nose or it'll drop the wing. In either case, it pretty much gets itself out of it. You might have to do a little bit, but it's not going to be something you're going to have to worry about. It's got a pretty sluggish roll rate. Pitch isn't as sluggish as the roll, but you know, after all, it is a boat. Yaw is fairly responsive though. When you cut the power, it really does slow down. And I will say I have quite a bit of fun flying it, you know, even if the stall characteristic is a little strange. It's not like I'm doing a whole bunch of aerobatic stuff in this thing anyway and stalling it all the time. So overall it's pretty fun. A slight aside here, I do remember playing Dover back in the day, and sometimes I'd get myself into a stall and it was over. It was either bail or crash. But that really doesn't seem to be the case here in Microsoft Flight Simulator, so it kind of is what it is. There are two things I hope they fix. One is the Autopilot, so that you can actually set the heading. And then the other is the anchor. I kind of wish it would hold the plane in place, but I'm not sure they can do that. If they can, that would be great, but, you know, otherwise, it's not really a big deal. I also do like that there is engine damage, so that's kind of a bonus for this one. And as a whole, I really do like it. I've been flying it quite a lot since it came out, and I'm probably going to continue to fly it at least until I can stick these water landings. So that's pretty much going to be it for today. Thanks for watching, y'all, and I hope there's a next time.